G'day folks, welcome to this summary of our playthrough of Paths of Glory from turns 5 through to the end of turn 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more turns, another quarter of the game, basically the second quarter of the game. This is the game state. A lot has changed since the last update. So I think the big thing is Italy entered the war and pretty much quickly left it. Now, as I said, I'm the Central Powers. My friend is playing the Allies, their very first game ever. I did try to give some advice on what to do in Italy, but Italy's tough for a new player. You don't have to send a lot. The Central Powers don't have to send a lot into Italy. You've got one German army with some corps and a couple of Austrians, and that was enough just to slowly grind them. And once, you can see the Italian eliminated units here, once a nation kind of gets on the back foot, a nation like Italy in particular, once Italy gets on the back foot, it is very difficult to recover from that. And I know that as a Central Powers, and I just kept relentlessly, turn after turn, ops, attack, advance, non-stop. We have wiped out Serbia. That was really good because that freed up, and this is another thing. So I did mention to the Allied player that this is what I was going to try and do: wipe out Serbia from the war to free up the Austrians to shift to the Italian frontier. And I did that. I wiped out Serbia before Italy entered the war, and so I moved my armies up to the Italian frontier. So the moment Italy entered the war, the attack, the Central Powers attack, was launched. So I've picked up a lot of VPs in Italy. Turkey, of course, was in the war, but there's been a lot of action down here. And look, MEF has tried to invade the Ottoman Empire via Adana here. I do have the Turkish YLD force out. The Russians also had, so they did have, let me find it for you, their Caucasus army. I brought this up into the north, but it's been wiped out through very careful play of Kemal. Now, for those who don't know, the Central Powers player has a combat card that, when revealed and played, treats their core as armies. And I've used that twice to great effect to really hurt. So the MEF, I think, has been reduced as a result of one of those traps, in effect. And then the Russian army was wiped out as well as a result of that. So pretty happy with how the Turks have been holding out the Central Powers forces. A lot of Bulgarians down here as well. I will emphasize there are limitations on strategically relocating forces. We have been following those rules very closely. This is the slow build-up of Bulgarians. Romania entered the war, and they are being smashed by some Austrian armies. And again, now that Italy is kind of like being dealt with, the Austrians can divert these resources towards Romania. The Germans have just been up in the Eastern Front. The Germans have just been chipping away at those Russians. As I mentioned sort of in the last video, as a Central Powers player, I don't tend to attack Russia too aggressively. I recognise, here's Breslau, right? This is where German replacements come in. If you lose an army, they're built here. And then the further you push into Russia, it's a long march. You're looking at 2-3 turns of movement to get these armies to the front. And then it's only one turn for the Russians to counter once the fighting kind of pushes along here. All right? Russians build an army in Moscow, they're in Kiev, and that's often where the front line is. So I'm never in much of a hurry to advance too far into Russia. My focus on the Eastern Front is just to keep the Russians kind of reduced and on a back foot, weak, vulnerable, worried about what the Germans might do next. So I've got 3 big stacks of German armies just poised. They're not campaigning so much, they have a lot of potential to do damage. Okay? Occasionally launch an attack. You've got excess German replacements. I'll attack the Russians, just reduce some Russians, try and wipe out a Russian army, force him to rebuild it in Moscow, and then spend action points to bring that back to the front. So basically he's spending Russian replacements, and he's spending at least 2 actions to bring that unit back to the front. Meanwhile, I'll just flip my German army back up. I've got Walter Rathenau out. It's a free German replacement. No problem. Western Front has been pretty quiet. The occasional back and forth, the occasional mandatory offensive. We are using, you may notice these negative ones, these are the optional trench modifier. So if you fail an entrenching attempt, you place a -1 modifier on it, and any future attempts have a -1 to the dice roll. I like this rule because, like, if you guys are trying to dig in, it makes sense that they've made some progress. So that's a very good optional rule that I very highly recommend. It's the only optional rule we're using. Okay, so yes, the Italians in trouble. Western Front pretty quiet. This is a bit of a problem for the French. He did eventually strategically relocate a British army down here, and it's done well to just hold off the Germans. The Germans are sitting right on the border in Turin. This is a bit of a dance around here. They've got to be careful how they advance. Yeah, it's pretty quiet here at the moment. As I said, a couple of back and forth combats here and there, but nothing too much. The Austrians, as I said, they helped invade Italy. The Germans went west. The Austrians have been pushing down the boot. There is the potential for Salonika. I'm not too worried about that if it happens. I've got 4 armies in the vicinity. So if the allies of the French and British come into Salonika, all right, they might capture Sofia if they're lucky, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 armies in the area. As I said, the Romanians have only just recently entered the war, and they're very quickly being smashed. I'd love to be able to knock out Romania. There aren't a lot of Russians in southern Russia. You've got 1 and a reduced army here in Zhytomyr. All right, that's it. And I have got, as I said, a lot of Austrians down here. So the Austrians have had a lot of breathing space this game. And again, inexperience. The Russians could put a lot of pressure on them, but they haven't. We have discussed that. But the Austrians have had this freedom to attack Serbia, wipe them out, then move to Italy, help wipe them out, and now attack Romania and help wipe them out. And look, I think one of the reasons is you've got 3 big stacks of Germans here. That's where the Russians have been worried about. That's where they're sending their reinforcements. So the Germans have kind of threatened Russia. Russia has responded. Austria's gone, well, if Russia's not going to threaten me, I'm going to do what I want. Free reign against these sort of weaker powers. Not much holding Bulgaria. Not much holding in Constantinople. This is kind of some vulnerabilities here, but there's not a lot on the Allied side to threaten these positions. What else? Look, lots of events have come out. We have a big deck of these are our events that we've played. We are at war status 23. So kind of, it's what you'd expect. Probably higher than you'd expect. We're both at total war. We have both our total war decks in play. Here's a summary of some of the main events. As I said, Rathenau, 11th Army's in play. The usual events. I haven't played Sud Army yet, which is really surprising. It lets me stack an Austrian army with some Germans to create a big, powerful stack that can activate for just 1 ops. That's it. So, like I said, this is probably the second quarter of the game. We're almost halfway through, just about to start turn 10. And, VP's on 15. But, look, I think there's some easy VPs for the Central Powers to grab, and I may, try to push up to that 20 for the auto win. There's some VPs in Russia that I can easily grab. There's 2 in Romania. There's still 2 more in Italy. So there's at least 1, 2, 3, 4 easy VPs, and then I just need 3, 4. I need 2 more from Russia, and I can see Vilna, Minsk are wide open. Odessa is open in the south, maybe. Kiev, possibly. Then there's a problem of pushing deeper into Russia. All right, folks, thank you for watching, and take care.